Without further ado, Dan Douthart.
To go along with the Saturday show where I showed you how to make necklace pendants quickly and easily for making Christmas presents for your granddaughters or daughters or great-granddaughters or whatever, I'm going to show you tonight how to make a little ring box. Just a small lidded box. It's got an in-fitting lid, and it's got a loose lid that you can just pick up with one hand. You know, a lot of turners get satisfaction out of making a lid that you have to making a box that the lid is where you can't just pick it up. It has a friction fit. Well, to me, that box is not very functional. It's okay to just sit up on the shelf and say, yeah, I made that, and you play with it a little bit. But for something that actually sits in your desk that you can actually put something in and easily open it up, I just don't think the friction fit lid is very functional. Is there anybody in here who has never made a lidded box? Okay. Most of the demonstrations or books that you see on lidded boxes are this type of box here, where it's an overfitting lid, where the lid goes over top of the base. And to do that, typically, what you do is you start off with a piece of wood, and you put a tenon on both ends, and then you part it off, and this is the lid and this is the base. In fact, start with the lid. You do the inside part of the lid, get the diameter that you want there. Then you put the base on, and you cut the outside of the base to where you get a friction fit or a hard fit on the body, and then with that stuck on there very hard, then you can come and you can finish the top of the lid. And then you can do you can finish up whatever the shaping or whatever, and then you have to have another block of wood that you make a jam chuck that you put the base on then with a snug fit, and then you can finish the bottom of the box out. So it's kind of long, drawn out, and there's quite a number of steps to do that. What I'm going to show you tonight is what I think is a much simpler approach. This book here it's out here on the shelf, Chris Stott. And I'm going to show you the first box in there. He just calls it a simple box, and it's an in-fitting lid instead of an overfitting lid. Okay, and that's the dimensions. And
so what kind of lid?
An in-fitting lid, where the lid, instead of this one, the lid fits over top of the base.
Right.
With this one, the lid fits inside the base.
Gotcha.
So this is an in-fitting lid. And this is an overfitting lid. See where the lid fits over top of the base. I'm going to use this basic proportions for the box. And the steps that he does is he puts a block in between centers, cuts a tenon on it, and then puts the block in the chuck. And then he comes down here and he forms the top of the lid, makes the recess part that's going to go inside the base, and then he parts that off, and then the base is, from parting it off, the base is basically flat. Well, then he just sands that off. And then he does the inside of goes through and hollows out the inside of the base, and polishes it, and parts it off and sands it flat. Well, that's not very elegant in my opinion of just having the bottom sanded flat. Plus, what happens if you're making a ring box by the dimensions that he uses, if this was sanded across flat, you'd only have about a quarter of an inch of space inside the box. So what I'm doing is I take some material out of the bottom of the lid, gives you more space inside the box. And I'm going to do it just a little bit differently than what he shows here. I'm going to be using these dimensions, which is basically the same as what he had here, but the critical dimension I'm using is this 41 millimeters across here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the chuck without any kind of jam chucks. I'm going to use the chuck to hold right there so I can finish off the top of the lid. So I need to do this part of the lid first. Well, and the way he was doing it, he was shaping the top of the lid, then parting it off. Well, I need to have it the other way around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the base, the bottom of the base, the base parted off, and then I've got the lid, the bottom of the lid sticking out. I'm going to go ahead and shape the bottom of the lid to give me that tenon, and then I'm going to put that in the chuck and finish off the top of the lid. So that's the steps that I'm going to go through. So I've got a block here. I didn't think you needed me to see. I started out with this between centers, brought it down to about 55 or 60 millimeters, put a tenon on it, put it in the chuck. Now I've already taken it down a little bit, so I need to go ahead and take this down to my finish dimension of 48 millimeters. I want this to be a 48 millimeter cylinder here. Let's see, can you hear me with this on? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to use a skew. Like I said, I've got this down to about 50 millimeters now. I'm going to go ahead and take it down to 48. And I'll run at about 1800 RPMs. I finally got around to cleaning my wood pile off. It's had wood on it for about 5 years. And I think this is some old aged Bradford pear. Got it down to 49. Okay, we got 48 millimeters. Let's put this back in. Actually, slightly less. But, okay, so that's my my cylinder. In fact, it looks like this might be a little bit larger back over here. No, it's okay. So next, I want to finish the bottom of the box. I'll go ahead and clean it up. Okay, there's a little bit of a nick right there, so I'm going to be recessing the bottom of the box so this point here will go away and that little nick there will go away. So I'm on the bottom. I'm just going to do just a scooped out bottom like this instead of putting a rim on like on this one. I put a rim on it, but just for expediency, I'll show you. This is a simple contour that you put on there, and I just want to scoop it out just a little bit so that when it sits on the table, it's actually touching on the rim. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scoop that out a little bit just to give me a recess in the bottom. And for this, I'm just using a 1/2 inch spindle gouge with more pretty much a conventional type of grind on it. I want my tool rest about at center height. Okay, that's fairly smooth. I've got a few little rings on there. A few few little rings on there, so we're going to use a shear scraper to clean that up. Now this is the Sorby chatter tool. It comes with a couple different chatter blades, and it also comes with this little scraper. It's available out here on the shelf. And the shear scraping, there's just plain scraping is you hold the tool flat on the thing, and the fiber and the wood is coming directly down on top of the blade. Well, in order for a scraper to work, you got a slight little burr on here on this tool on the top of the bit here. If you hold it in there like that burr is going to be taken off in seconds. Well, shear scraping is you're holding it at an angle, and instead of the wood coming directly down on top of it, it's coming down at an angle and shearing across the burr instead of straight down on the burr, and the burr will last a little longer. You see it? Okay, so now I've got a much better surface on the bottom there. Little bit of a tip right there on the center. We'll see if we can get rid of that. See if that helps.
Where did you get that light?
Cindy Drozia had them at the symposium. Okay.
Did you sharpen that and put the burr on?
Hmm.
Did you sharpen that and put the burr on there?
Every time you use it.
Similar to the way you would a card scrape?
No. I just use this diamond hone. It's a trend diamond file, and I just to put the burr on it. Of course, I'm not going to scrape because you need to put oil in there. But just go like that and just like that, and it'll put the burr on the top.
And just leave the burr on top?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And after you do that for a while, you can't get it up there anymore. It sort of rounds it off when you have to come back and you flatten it off here, or take it back to the. I do it on the Tormac, and just reshape it on the Tormac. That'll give you a bit of a burr also. But for this, it doesn't take really any steel off of the thing, and I'll just touch it up before I use it. Typically every time I'll redo the burr. I'll feel it and make sure that it feels like the burr is still good. So there's the bottom. Now, if you want to put a little bit of decoration in there, you could do a chatter tool or a spiraling tool, or you can just put some rings on it. Remember when Nick Cook was here, he said you got to put 3 lines on there. You have to write between the lines. So you can just put some lines on it to decorate. And also, if there's a little groove in there that you just can't get rid of, we'll put a V groove on top of it. Now I'm going to hold this in the downward motion. If I held it up like this, or even flat, it would have a tendency, the fibers have a tendency of pulling out. Well, I'm going to hold it down like this, and it's going to be coming down at an angle, and it's going to shear the fibers off instead of trying to lift them out. It's going to try to push them into the groove instead of pulling them out of the groove. And I typically always do 3. Okay, so the bottom now, let's just round the bottom edge over a little bit. That bright light shining in anybody's face? Okay, I'm just a spindle gouge with a more of a swept back, about a 30-degree nose angle, swept back wings. I'm just going to come in just round that, round the corner off, get rid of that sharp edge. Okay, so that's it for the actual bottom of the box. So the next thing is I need to mark my dimension here. What I actually want to do is I want to mark the 19 to this. This is going to be the top of ledge of the box. That's going to be the top of the lip. The top of the lip, and then this bit up here is just a guide for when I'm going to hollow it out to match the tenon on the lid. So I'm going to start it with, I'm going to mark down and come down 19 millimeters. Okay, that's going to be at this point right here, at that point right there. So then I want to mark that. So if I just went in there with a parting tool, it would try to tear the fibers out. So I'm going to use the skew just to give me a nice sharp edge there. Just that much. Okay, so now I want to go down about 1 millimeter just to give me this, to give me that step right there. I'm going to go down about 1 millimeter deep. And what that line is for is, it just gives me, if you didn't have that line in there, invariably, even if you've got dry wood, invariably the wood's going to move. If this edge here comes in contact with this edge down here, any kind of movement in the wood, you're going to feel that ridge. There's going to be a gap there, a ridge, not a gap, but a ridge. So that recess there just gives you a little bit of a shadow line, and any movement in the wood is not as noticeable then. So this is another little parting tool. And we got just a little over 2 millimeters, little over 1 millimeter. So now I want the height of that to be about 1 millimeter also. So I'm just going to come here and just guess on that. That's going to be the actual top of my box, that line there. So again, I want to mark that line with a skew. Okay. So now I want to come in and recess to get my 41 millimeters for the tenon on the lid. So I'm going to need to go down about 7 or 8 millimeters wide there and go down to 41 millimeter diameter. Hey, well, I got lucky there. 41 millimeters exactly. Okay, so now the width, I want my the flange on the bottom of the lid is 4 millimeters, and then I got to provide for the width of my parting tool, which is about 2 or 3 millimeters. So I need to come down and let me just go ahead and make a parting mark there to have a guide to go by. And when I part it, I'm going to leave a bit of a flange. That's going to be my guide when I start hollowing out that second step in there. this second step here is the same as what the top is. That's when I start hollowing this out in here, that's going to be my guideline of how far I can hollow it out and not make it too large to fit the lid. So I've just left a little bit of a lip in there for that guide. So now I need to come back from this edge here, the 4 millimeters for the top. Okay, again, I want that to be a nice crisp edge, so I'm going to put a line with a skew to give me a crisp edge there. So now I just need to take this down to the diameter, to this height right there. Okay. Okay, so the bottom is finished except for hollowing out. So I'll go ahead and put some finish on here now. And what I'm using for finish is just a block of beeswax. And again, about 1800 RPMs, I'm just going to just deposit some wax on the surface. And then this is it feels like a piece of cloth, but it's a paper towel. If you get them at Ace Hardware, it's called rags in a box, but they have a texture of a rag instead of a texture. It's much softer and smoother, more like a rag than a paper towel. So again, I just put some pressure on to melt that beeswax. There needs no fingernail to get any out of the groove. Okay, so that's it for the bottom, except for hollowing. So you go ahead and part it off now. Okay, so there's the bottom. Okay, so the next step then is to hollow out the bottom of the top. What I'm going to do is trim that. Got a little bit of a sharp edge there. I'll go ahead and trim that off. And also I want to undercut the lip right here. I don't want that to be an angle coming in this way because it wouldn't fit. So I want it to fit square down on this lip right here. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to undercut that slightly. There's a little bit of ridge there. I'm going to take that off, come in and undercut it, and then take the corner off here. And then, since this is a parting cut, I was doing a peeling, and it's not really torn out. But if it was torn out, I would come in and I would clean that off to give me a good surface area. But the surface area looks pretty good. And then I want to round this corner off a little bit here just to get rid of that sharp edge. Okay. And also this is going to be, the outer surface here is going to be the final surface, so I want to smooth that up, make sure that surface there is clean. Okay, That's all far they need to go for that. And now, so the inside lip of the box is going to be a couple millimeters wide. So I'm just going to put a mark out here, about right there. Okay, now for hollowing, this is end grain. And you might think, well, I'll just take the spindle gouge and just start going in like that. Well, if you do it that way, you're going to be pushing that tip directly into the end grain, and it's not going to cut very clean. You can get the wood torn out, but it's not going to cut very cleanly. And you're going to get a lot of torn out fibers, and it's also going to do subsurface damage. So you might get in there and you got I got a little bit of groove in there. You sand it, you get rid of the groove, and there's still a ring there. Well, it's the surface below, or the subsurface fibers are torn along with the upper fibers, and you can't. They're damaged. So when you to hollow that end grain out, I'm going to make a cup thing in there. So ideally, I would need to come in like that and come out to get a nice bevel riding shearing cut. But we can't do that. Now I've got a one-way termite tool that works very well for that. But I wanted to show you how to do it with just basic tools. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with the spindle, with the flute completely open or straight up, just to bore in a ways, and then I'm going to tilt it, and I'm only going to be cutting on the very nose. I'm not going to come around here on the side. I'm just going to be cutting on the nose. I'm going to tilt it at about an angle like that, and I'm actually going to get a shear cutting, a shear scraping type of cut, and it's going to give me a fairly clean cut. When I get over here to the edge now, what I'm going to do is, instead of just pulling it straight out and giving a scraping cut, I'm going to drop the handle slightly. Since I don't have the point is no longer in contact. If you had the point still in contact and lowered the handle, you'd have a chance of a really severe catch. But once that point is left the surface down there, I can drop it out, do it down, and do more of a shear scraping cut right here on the just on the left side of the point. Okay, there's it. And just bring it out, and I'm getting a shear scraping cut then. Give me a very, very clean cut. Okay, now I want to have that dome slightly, and what I do is I've got it anchored here on the tool rest, and I'm just going to push it in, and then pivot it on the tool rest. So I want to have a domed surface in there. And the height of my inside of my lid is 11 millimeters. I've got this set for 11, and I still got another 1/4 of an inch or so to go. Okay, I'm down to about 1/8. Does that help out? Okay, that's good. fact, I went about a millimeter or so too far, so I had to make the top a little bit thicker. When I was pulling that out a while ago, felt it catch something. I just got a little bit of tear out right there. So what we can do is we can just round that off a bit. Do that with this shear scraper again. Okay, I can come in and I can get the bottom of the box there, but I can't. It's not positioned right to come up the wall. But I'll go across and get the bottom, or the inside bottom, or the bottom of the inside of the top. And when you're doing that, you got to be careful you don't raise that point up and hit the top, because that'll do a catch also. So I'm just going to rotate it around a little bit so I can get around the corner. Okay, so we'll just round that off a little bit there. You see that tear out that I got when I was pulling the gouge out a while ago. I let it touch on the point there. So we'll just round that off a little bit. You feel that? You can just hear that little bit of a ticking. Well. And I've got a sharp edge there, so we'll cut that off just a little bit. Okay, now I've shortened this up a little bit from the 4 millimeters, but I think it's still fine. If you really needed the 4 millimeters, I can just cut it back a bit farther and then just extend the top back up farther. So I've got all this material here to work with, so there's still plenty of material there. So that's it for the box. Now here, I'll give you an example here. See on there, there's a little bit of a thing that I wasn't able to get out with the scraper. So what we'll do is we'll just make it a decoration. Okay, so we'll go ahead and mark the top of the top. Now I went down. I went a little bit deeper than what. Well, no, actually now, since I took some off of here, it's okay. So this is the inside of the top is right here, and I want to leave the thickness of the top about 3 millimeters or so for hitting any. Especially if you want to do a recessed top like I did on the bottom. If you just want to have a recess, you've got to account for that. So you'd have to make it a little bit farther so you give you room to dip in. But I'm going to try, I think we'll have plenty of time. I want to show you how to put this type of decoration on top of it. So I don't have to have, I can, 4 mil, because I'm going to be cutting up and we'll let this stand proud. So I could come in, say 3 millimeters probably will be sufficient. 1, 2, 3. That'll make it 4. So that's where we'll start parting the top edge of the top. And again, I want a nice crisp line there. Okay, now I can come in with the parting tool. And what I'll do is I'll go down this this element here is about a 1 inch in diameter. So I'll go down and I'll part it down to within a little bit over an inch. About 1 1/8 inches. We'll go down just about another 1/16 of an inch. Okay. So now I want to round over this, get rid of the sharp edge there. Make sure I don't have any. Yeah, I've got a recess there, and I got a good flat surface there. I think we're ready to put some wax on that. Okay, so now we can go ahead and part it off. And I'm going to leave that top bit there proud by about 1/16 of an inch or so. There's our inside of the top done. So the next thing is to hollow out the bottom, and make first off make the bottom fit the recess on the flange on the lid. Or we're done with that bit. Here it is. Okay, she asked me why I chose 48 millimeters. It's over here, Tandy leather over here across the street. Just inside, up in front of the counter, they got these bins that's got scraps of stuff in it. Well, they had this bag of scraps. It was like $7, $8. I just cut off a strip a 1/2 inch wide, just to fit the inside of the jaws. So that's why I made it 48 millimeters, because that's what fits in the chuck. Okay, so again, this line here, this bit sticking right out here, that's my marker of how big my flange is on my lid. So when I'm hollowing it out, I want to come down to where that just gets very, very thin, and then I'll start checking the lid and make sure to get the lid to fit. Back to the half inch spindle gouge.
Do you have a wax finish on those other boxes?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they're all the same.
And that holds up pretty good for you?
If you spill water on them, it probably wouldn't, but if it's just sitting on your dresser. And the more you handle it, if you ever read any Richard Graffin's, he said you're supposed to polish it, and he puts that kind of wax finish on also. You're supposed to polish it once a day for a week, and then once a week for once a day for a week, once a week for a month, and then once a month for a year. And the more you handle it, it builds up a patina. Okay, so now I want to have, it's not so critical on this. All I need is just the very outside edge to hold the lid so it doesn't feel sloppy. It's not so critical that's perfectly straight in there because I'm not jam chucking it. But if you do a box like this, when you're doing the inside of the lid, that has to be perfectly that straight or in line with the bed of the lathe, so that when you jam chuck it, you get a good solid fit on the jam chuck. On this, I'm doing the same principle here. It doesn't have to be, but I like for it to be as straight as I can get it. And what I'm using then is I'm looking at my bottom edge right here, and I'm sort of holding that in line with the bed of the lathe. And well, you can check that to see if it's perpendicular. Now, you see, I've seen some people go out and hold it like this and on the flange and see if it's lined up with the bed of the lathe. If you have some inside calipers, you can feel that it's about right there, and it's getting narrower. I can tell then it's not going straight in. Okay. It's jamming about right there. Let's just check the lid fit. The lid is still, oh no, it is going in. So that's, I don't want to take any more off out here. In fact, that's really starting to break loose there anyway. But my diameter right here at the opening of the lid is good. The opening of the base is good. So we just go ahead and get rid of that. And actually, it's going down deep enough to where I've got a good. I've got a good fit where there's no gap. So I don't need to, I'm straight in far enough. And I got a good, it's a loose fit, but there's no wobble, no slop in the lid. So it's a good fit. So we'll come back and I'll dress that up later with a scraper, but now we can go ahead. I don't want to touch this again because that's pretty clean. So now I'm going to go ahead and go in to my depth of 15 millimeters for the depth of the box. And now, oftentimes you'll see the bottom of a box is, well, this one's curved a little bit. But my feeling is that if you're going to put something in here sitting on the desk with a ring or earrings or something that you might not be able to get your fingers down in there to pick it up. So if you just take it and be able to pull it out like that, if that comes out to a corner, it's harder to get it slid out. So I'm going to make a bottom of the inside of that box is going to be just basically dished out. So it's a nice, just a parabolic like curve. So if there's something in the bottom there, you can just pick it and be able to scoop it right out. Plus, if you do want sanding, it's a lot easier to get in there to sand it. You don't have that corner to mess with. Again, I'm just using a pivot point here, and that's what gives me that curve. Okay, we've got about another 1/8 of an inch or so to go. Now I can't see what I'm doing up in here, but I'm looking down there and seeing. I can see where the cut is progressing, and I can see down there when I'm at the wall. Another 1/16 of an inch. And that's good. Okay, so use some shear scraping in there. It's pretty, they've got just a little bit of a, let's let me go back in the skew because I get just a little bit of a dimple right there in the center where it's just slightly deeper. Okay, that's good. Okay, we'll do some shear scraping. Again, what Richard Rathbun says, when you're using a scraper, you want to have the broadest curve that will match your contour. If you try to go in there with that point like that, it'd really be hard to not have ridges in there. So I want to use this real broad curve to do most of the work across the bottom. Does that help out when I put that in there like that? Okay, so now I got to roll it around to get into the corner. Okay, let's dress this. Just break that sharp edge off there. Let's try. There's a little bit of line there in the corner. There's slight lines there. I'm not going to worry about that. We'll see if I can just get that one out of the corner right there. Okay, that's good. Okay, use some wax. Now on here, my beeswax is probably too big to fit down inside there. So, well, if you again on Richard Rathbun's, he just says, well, you just deposit some on the outer lip out there, just get some deposited there, and then when you put the cloth in there and melt the wax, you can move it around inside. So I'll just get some wax there on the edge. See, I just melt it, and then I can move it around and get it up into the bottom. And in doing that, I left a little ridge of wax there. You just scrape that off. And then just take a cloth and just sort of buff it a little bit. And there's the bottom. Okay, so now we do the top, and so we got, I think I can get it done in 15 minutes. And the reason I wanted this to be 41 millimeters is that is just about as small as I can go and still be able to grab it right there. You can see how much gap there is, and the jaws are pretty close together. Okay. To make that flower looking like design, I'm going to use this. It's a Wagner type of tool. And I'm going to run it about 1,000 RPMs. And I'm just going to, I want to leave about that. I want to leave the center of the flower about 1/4 of an inch in diameter. So I'm going to be about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, or from the center. A little bit high. And you've got to put some pressure on it. Going straight in, and then I'm going to rotate it that way a little bit, and rotate it this way a little bit. And that didn't come out exactly what how the other one did. But let's on the rest of the top, I want to just put a little bit of a rim around the outside, and then just, this is already recessed there, but I'm going to put a rim here and then just cut it down a little bit to leave that rim proud. Okay, and to start that, I'm going to use the point tool again, just to start the edge of my rim. Okay. And we'll round this off a bit here. Okay. Okay, so now I want to come in. I want to come in and from this area down here down to that. Well, I can't really get in there and get in and get it out like that. Now I could come over like this. Now if I was at home, I could just go and stand on that side of the lathe and come in like this. So I've got my set screw in here. On this chuck, there's a place for a set screw there to lock the chuck on the lathe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lathe in reverse, and I'm going to cut it over on that side over there. And to do that, I've got another gouge here. I put a shorter bevel on here, so I've got room. It still is not quite as. I'd like to have it a little bit more, but we can at least get it out down there like that. Actually, I think we can take some of that corner off. Yeah, I can take some of that corner off and then relieve that a little bit. I need a little bit steeper angle on my gouge to be able to get down in there. See if this one will work on it. And now since that inside edge is done with the parting tool or that point tool, I'm just going to come in and drop the tip and just do a bit of a shear scrape to blend that in. Okay, so I got some to take out with a scraper there. And what I'm going to do to clean that up is the shear scraper that I've been using is really kind of broad to be able to get in there. There isn't anything really narrow enough to really get down in there. So what I'm going to use is just this little round skew and just use it as a scraper. Taking very light cuts, and it still should get, since this is end grain, I can still get a fairly decent cut out of it. I need to put another, you can go back to forward motion. Still got a little bit of a groove right there. Coming this way. I think that'd be good. I'm going to put some wax on that.
How far back do you have that tool ground?
Which one? This one?
Yeah.
And when you heat that wax up, you'd think that wax would really build up in that textured area, but you generate the heat and melt the wax, it just melts into the pores of the wood. And then if there is any left in there, then you just take that brush again and that's going to take it off.
Is that a nylon brush or?
Yeah, it's a nylon bristle brush. Fairly stiff bristles. Really, it didn't do too bad, but you can just go along with a nylon brush like that and scrape it out. And again, I got a little bit of a wax ridge there from where it was hitting against the jaws. And just polish that off. And here's a little box. Lid might be a little bit tighter than what I would. Should have taken just a little bit more off it to make it a little bit looser than that. If there's any kind of weight in it, it would. Well, if you're doing a pillbox that you want to carry in your pocket or your purse, you'd make a tight lid. So you don't want it coming off in your pocket or your purse. So you'd make, in that case, you'd make a lid that's tight because you're going to have both hands to pull it open to get what you want out of it. But in the case here, like paper clips or whatever, of course you'd want something a little bigger than that in the paper clips. But I don't want to have to pick what. I got a stack of papers and I'm looking for a paper clip. I got to lay the papers down, open the box up, and keep from spilling it when I pop the box open. I want to be able to just lift the lid off. I'll get my papers all organized, lift the lid off, get a paper clip and put it on, and put the lid back on. I don't want to have to struggle with the lid to get it off. I want the lid to just come off easily. If it's something I'm going to put something on my desk that I'm going to be utilizing. But if you just want to have something set on your desk, because normally I'll make one of these that's got that you can sit there and play with it. Any questions? Okay.
What part of the were you running most of the time at?
About 1,800 for all the turning. When I was doing the texturing, that was 1,000, and the wax and all the turning was about 18 to 2,000.